fellowship welcome to the Dakins as they come.
Just don't get old like me, Pastor.
Okay, guys, I've cleaned it off with antibacterial stuff.
Can I just give some of my iPad in?
Yes.
Go ahead and talk, honey.
We're so glad to be back, and I so enjoy that praise and worship.
Yes.
You know, so you just don't understand what sometimes we have to listen to.
Oh, bless your heart.
So we really enjoy that. And so we're glad to be here. We thank you for your faithfulness, and we just hope that you'll just be blessed and pat yourselves on the back as you see what he's beginning to share with you.
If I can get this thing to work, we'll go through it real quick first. It works right here, don't it? If it works. There we go. There's a picture of the ranch. That's where we keep people there, and you see that big long building. Our little house is right in behind that. Do what? Okay, you do that in a minute. Anyway, that's the ranch that God permitted us to build. Come on, dude, there we go. This is Christmas. They're handing out stuff here. Come on, there we go. That's getting the stuff ready. When we get the stuff out, it is a chore getting it all ready to get out to the people. This is handing some of the stuff out as we went up the mountain there. This here is a weenie roast. They never seen of course, they don't eat hot dogs anyway. Pedro Calientes. But they never ate them anyway, so then this is not the first one, but it is fun to watch them, especially when it comes to the marshmallows. The adults has it from right here to right here, buddy. I mean, oh, they have a ball. So that was one right there. This is our education program. We have 50 children in school this year, 2 in college, 1 of them graduating this year from the university. This is Gladys getting the kids ready. We don't just say you can go to school. We require they have to go to church. We're not there to play games. We're there to teach them about Jesus. That's the main thing. And so they don't have to go to our church. That's not the thing. But their pastor has to tell us they've been in church. If not, Gladys handles that. This is what I was excited about. We had our first graduating class this year, International School Ministry. They started down at 28, and you can see we had 5 graduate. But that's normal in Honduras. They got a 2-year associate's degree from the United States in biblical studies. So they was excited about that. And this is EJ, Everett's little son. He's 2.5 now, and you see what he's doing. He does the drinks. When we go to the mountain feed, he don't get to go. You don't want to be around him. He does the drinks. This is the kids lined up at the school up in the mountain, getting ready to eat. This is another school we feed at here. This is Watash doing it. We always pray before they eat. Most of the time, one of the little ones will do the prayer. You understand, this is grades kindergarten through 6, and one of them, I mean, will pray like you've never heard nobody pray. It is awesome. I get excited just hearing them. Here's Darlene and Gladys handing stuff out. A lot of times, if we're not in school, we still go anyway, and we just feed out of the back of the truck because the kids know we're coming. So this here is our medical clinic with our doctor. It's still going good. We've got a young doctor. He's, 24, 25, 25? He's just out of school. So we're blessed to have. And we also got a dentist now that we're tickled to have. This is the nurse getting them ready to go in and see the doctor. This is Darlene trying to work in the pharmacy a little bit. Trust me, she don't do that no more. She has enough paperwork to do. There's other ministry. Old Blue, we use him for everything. Of course, you can see here we was working on the road, I think. This here was up in the mountains. That's Woody. He's a Gideon. He comes over every year now and hands out Bibles. I forget how many thousands of Bibles that guy's already handed out in about 3 years, I think, that he's been coming. Or 3 or 4 years. It's probably, what, honey, how many Bibles you think? There's a bunch. I'd be afraid to say it. There's a bunch. This is one of the church services here. Kind of gives you an idea what one of the churches look like. It does have a new ceiling in it now. That's where the ceiling was put in. This is the other church. That's Okalti. The other church was Okatal. This is feeding up in the mountain. We took hot dogs up there. And boy, I mean, they come out of the woodwork. Needless to say, we run out of food. We had shoes, we had clothes, we had everything with us, but we run out. I don't know where they all come from. This is a young lady that helps us a lot. This is her house. She had no doors and windows. Now she has doors and windows. This is the community center we're just now building, I think. That's getting ready for it. That's a soccer field. Ever building a soccer field. I didn't do this. Everett wanted it. It was a great ministry. It is, because when the Americans come over and play soccer with these young men, they'll go to church. And most of them will end up getting saved just because the Americans took time to play soccer with them. This is a soccer field here. This is what it looks like. So he did it. He went to the mountain and got the sod. Now, this is teamwork right here. These beams are 64 foot long, and we had to pack them about a quarter of a mile down and put them up while we still had them on our shoulders. So it was fun doing. There it is. That's what we had right there, is the beam that went on top. We did everything out of metal, so we don't have to wrestle with the termites. That's our new conference center that we was putting up. This is kind of the easy way of doing it. We don't have cranes like you all have, so it's done by hand. This is kind of what it was looking like. There's a team and me that put up the truss. We got them all up. The next team put the metal on the roof. That group there is from eastern Kentucky. This here was one of the Christmas. This is when we did that wind roast. This is did it inside, right there to stay in where it was cooler. This is what it looks like now. We are really tickled. In fact, May 31st, we've got Roy Ellis from the Christian Assembly. He's coming over to do a men's conference. It'll be a men's conference on Friday night. Saturday, we'll probably have 2 services with the whole community. I don't know how many will be there for that. We'll feed them and everything. This is cooking for the kids. Now, we don't normally do this. We just took a picture so you can see how we do it. We use a boat oar to stir the food with. That tells you how much food's there. This is a new playground. It's not up yet, but it will be up. They're coming. We're going home May 16th, and they're coming May 20th, and they're going to put this playground up for our kids over there. So we are tickled to get this done. A group, in fact, the man that's heading this up got saved at the last church I pastored. He come in. I was beginning to wonder. I thought we had a gangster in there. I'm telling you, he kind of scared me when he came in. You'd have had to see him. I mean, smoked up, doped up. God miraculously saved him, put a fire on him. He does mission work, or did, in Mexico. Goes to New Orleans every year to the Mardi Gras. Goes on the streets, wins people to Jesus right there on the streets. I mean, he loves the Lord. So anyway, he's coming. So we're taking that. This is the team here: Gladys and Everett on the ends, little EJ there. He's never going to know what it's like, not like to be in the ministry, because he hands out shoes. This little boy, we went to take shoes up to one of the first churches we passed or built, and we had shoes and everything. Well, EJ found a pair of pink shoes, and this little boy there, he was bound determined he was going to give it to this little boy. Now, you know as well as I do, little boy's not going to want pink shoes, but EJ was bound determined that he was going to take them shoes. So he's not going to know what it's like not to be in the ministry. I will talk more about this here in just a moment. I told you this is just a little different, but God laid something on my heart, and I'm excited to get to share it with you. 12 years ago, I preached this sermon, and I'm not going to preach it all to you. I'm just going to give you a little taste of it. But 12 years ago, and you say, you remember a sermon you preached 12 years ago? No, forget that. If I preached it yesterday, Darlene would have to tell me what I preached on. I'm getting at that age. But I was excited. This young lady named Gladys come and told me about this. So I want to talk to you about commitment today. How many knows what commitment is? We really need commitment. And commitment is something you need to think about before you commit to it. And Pastor Tony should be saying, yes, amen. Yes, amen. You know, we will commit to the church, we'll commit to the pastor, and then we kind of forget our commitment sometimes. But commitment is something that every one of, you know, you can't have commitment without submitment. And of course, we don't like to think about submitting to anybody. But it's true. We got to have submit to something before we can have commitment. Proverbs 16:3 says, commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. How many has ever made a commitment? You didn't hands. You got married, you made a commitment. Amen. And it's not to be changed. You stick it out. It's not always going to be good. It's not always going to be easy. You're not always going to look at it with that love you had one time. By the way, we're celebrating 50 years this year in August. We'll be that. But the bad news was, she told me yesterday if I didn't straighten up, I may not make it to that 50 years. So I don't know what I was doing. I guess I was there. But I've been committed. She's been committed. It's not been easy. Sometimes when you make a commitment, honey, it's not easy. It's very hard. And I want to share just a couple scriptures with you. I want you to think about commitment. Was the disciples committed to Jesus? I see heads going, yeah. And I see heads going, no. Yes and no, both. You're both right. The disciples, you know, we want to look at Peter and think, ooh, you know, Peter denied him 3 times. But what happened when they come to arrest Jesus? What happened to the rest of it? At least Peter went where he was arrested. Amen? You know, Peter was there. You know, he had to be to deny him 3 times. But where was the rest of the disciples? They scattered. So was they committed? Why don't you think about it a little bit? Yes and no. You know, later on, when Jesus already appeared to them, and all of a sudden he wasn't around no more, and my man Peter said, I'm going fishing. Well, what did the other disciples say too? I'm going with you. They was committed to fishing anyway. They was committed to fishing anyway. And I'm praying her husband catches thousands of fish and big fish. I want him to win that rascal. I do. But anyway, Peter said, I'm going fishing. The others went with him. Of course, you know the story. Jesus was on the seashore. But let me tell you, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's found in John chapter 21. But whenever Jesus called Peter in there and he asked him the 3rd time, he said, Peter, do you love me? Peter kind of got upset and he said, Lord, you know I love you. But from that day on, Peter was committed. I read nowhere in the Bible that Peter ever again went back and denied Christ or did anything. He was a knothead just like the rest of us. You know, Peter was a big mouth like me. He would just say what he thought. And a lot of times he got him in trouble. Darlene tells me I do that. But anyway, I want you to think about that. Peter never went back. Who preached the first sermon? How many people got saved? Yeah, we need some more Peters. Them big mouths that's not afraid to get out there and say it. You know, but people become committed, and then of course the rest of them did too at that time. Then you got Paul, which was Saul at the time. He had a head-on collision with Jesus. You know what he was doing? He was committed. I mean, even before that he had a head-on collision with Jesus, he was committed to what he thought was right. You know, sometimes we can commit, and it don't always mean it's going to be right. So I was asking my daughter, I said, I'm talking about commitment. She said, I said, what do you think about commitment? She said, you need to think before you commit. Yeah. We wouldn't see as many divorces if we would think before we commit. Yeah. I'll shut up on that one. But anyway, Paul, he thought it was right. And he was committed. He went and got papers where he could go kill the Christians. I mean, he was ready to slaughter them. He had slaughtered some. But he had a head-on collision with Jesus. You see, and then he totally become committed. Paul was probably one of the greatest committed to Jesus that I see in the Bible. And that's my thinking. You can think what you want, but But you know, you look what Paul went through, and he never denied him. I mean, they stoned him, thought he was dead. On and on the list goes. And you know, how many, you know, Paul died, off comes his head. I was told that's what was going to happen to me when I went to Honduras, but I still got this ugly thing. I would be home with Jesus if it did do that. So, but Paul, you think about that, and he never denied it. He knew what was coming, and he never gave up. Paul was a committed. So I asked the question, are you really committed? I want to read a couple scriptures to you, and then I want to tell you why that I want to talk to you about commitment. In Psalms 55:22 it says, cast thy burdens upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. That means take care. And he shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. Hang in there with him, folks. It may get rough. It may not be easy, but hang in there with him. He will take care of you. And then in 1 Peter 5:7 it says, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. How many knows Jesus cares for you even when you was out in sin? If he didn't, I wouldn't be here today because I was probably the worst. There wasn't much worse than what I was. But he cared for me. He had a plan for my life. And that plan, I didn't know it at the time. I knew I was called to preach as a young boy, and I ran as hard as I could from the Lord. I was not committed. But then when I did commit, I can't say it's been easy. I can't say I haven't made mistakes, but I've hung in there with Jesus. In the last 12 years, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. Because if I've never made a difference in anybody else's life, I want to share this with you right here. And the only way that I know this is because she come and told Darlene and I about me preaching this sermon 12 years ago. We was at the first church I built. In fact, church wasn't even done at the time. And I preached a sermon there for Pastor Ronnie. And I preached on commitment. Now you got to understand, in Honduras, the young ladies there, when they get 12 to 15, an older guy will come by and say, I want you for my wife. He'll take her, give her 4, 5, 6 kids, dump her, and give him another 12, 15-year-old and start over again. So as I was preaching this sermon, this is what she shared with Darlene and I. She said, I made a commitment that I was not going to be like the rest of the girls. I wanted my life to be different. But you've got to understand where this girl come from. Her mother had several children, all the different daddies. And she took Gladys when she was a baby and gave her to her grandmother and grandfather. And she never really lived with her mother, never did know her dad. She lived with her grandparents till she was about 8 years old. They died. She went to live with an uncle just, I guess, a couple months or something like that. And then she went to live with her aunt. Her aunt's husband had left her. She had 6 kids also. So Gladys being probably around 10 at that time, or 9, along there somewhere, she took care of them 6 kids that her aunt had while her aunt worked. Now she wasn't much older than some of them there. Some of them was just babies, but they thought of her as a mother because she was there with them so much. She took care of them while her aunt worked. But there was days the kid went without eating, you know. Didn't have clothes. But most of them over there may have 2 outfits. Everett, when he came to live with us, had clothes on his back, and that was about it. So they don't have clothes like we have. I went down there and looked for my clothes this morning. I had to look for something to fit me, and it was just a mess. But I got clothes hanging everywhere. And I wanted my blue jeans, my T-shirt, but I said, I can't do that. I'm going to church. So anyway, but I want to talk about Gladys. She was the same as any other girl there. But she heard me preach that sermon. And she said, I made a commitment. I said, God, I don't want to be like the rest of them. I want my life to be different. I want to keep myself for my husband. Lord, I want to do what you want me to do. Now, this is what she shared with us. And then, as time went by, nothing hardly changed. She didn't have much food. But she had held on to that commitment. She didn't give up. So then she got ready. She come down and work with us some as time went by. And things began to get a little bit better. And then we moved out to the ranch. We moved her aunt and all of them out there because it was so dangerous in the Goose Scotland. At the time, we moved them all out there with us. We had an apartment. We built an apartment in one end of that big ranch. You see, they lived there. And so she worked with us. And things began to be different. Not real great, but then they moved up in aunt's house. Her aunt built a house up there. She got married to a Texan. She really hadn't made it in, the aunt did. But Gladys moved in there with her and worked with us down there. And time went on and things began to change for her. To make a long story short, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures here, if I can. There's Gladys. That's when she was younger. This is her. You never put a Honduran in a truck if you don't want them going to sleep. Because you know how we'll put little babies in the truck and drive them a mile and they'll be asleep. Well, listen here, a quarter mile in Honduras, all of them is asleep. You're by yourself. And this is when we was traveling back and forth. This is Gladys here trying to learn the Julio. They'd never had one of them, so we showed them how to do it. And she was sure trying her best to Julio. This is Gladys as she matured and began to change. Look on her finger. You got to understand, I got a tender heart for her. Because when we moved to the ranch, she came out and said, "Would you be my daddy?" So she's my daughter. I said, "Yes, baby." But I said, "You got to understand. Now, if you're going to be my daughter, I'm not raising kids like everybody else. You'll walk the line. You'll do what's right." And she said, "No problem." And she hadn't been. She was just a great girl. Going through the teenage years, I was there to kind of guide her to help her, Darlene. She really patterned her life after Darlene. And I don't know that that's all good, because if you know Darlene, everything is black and white. There's no gray area. You know, that's just the way it is. There's no gray area in Darlene's life. This is the law. If she's driving down the road and there's a chunk hole there that deep, and it's on her side of the road, guess what she's going to do? She's not going over that other lane, because the law says that's her side. That's just the way she is. She thinks different from I do. You know, get on the road, because I'm going to swerve over to do anything. But that's, and Gladys has really begun to pattern her life after Darlene. I want to share what happened. Things didn't change for years, but she never gave up. But then, all of a sudden, after probably 6 years, things begin to change for her. Things begin to be different. The Americans coming over, they've seen her loyalty to Aaron's mission, how she worked hard. She would wait on you hand and foot you come over. That's Gladys. She's a servant. She loves being a servant. But then, things really changed. You see that big diamond ring on her finger? Well, that's from my son, Ever. Now, I told him, I said, "This is not right. You married my daughter." Him being my son. But they looked at each other as brother and sister. You see them in the truck? They was brother and sister, fought like brother and sister. That's just the way it was. I mean, she wanted an American, and he wanted somebody else, and and thank God it did. But I told Darlene, I said, and the Holy Spirit spoke to her, and I said, "Ever's going to marry Gladys." I mean, they wouldn't even look at each other. And I told her, I said, "Don't say nothing about it." She said, "Well, you're nuts. That's not going to happen. You know, a mama and her son, nobody's good enough for her. Not even Gladys." But anyway, she said, "That's not going to happen. They can't even stand to look at each other, just brother and sister." I said, "Well, watch what happens." I said, "Holy Spirit spoke it, and he don't lie." A year and a half later, you see the ring on the finger. They was making chicken soup for a group coming in. He asked her for a date. Now, you've got to understand, their date is a whole lot different from here in the States. Their date was them going to church, working in the ministry. I think he did take her into a restaurant in Tolonga to propose to her. But other than that, that was their dating. It's different there. So God began to do a work in that young lady's life. She now runs Aaron's Mission. She's got all them kids in school, 50 kids. She takes care of the feeding program. She takes care of the doctors. She tells the doctors what to do. She tells the dentist what to do. Help me out. She does all the paperwork. Working with the lawyer, working with the accountant. Now she's helping Ever preach. Ever's having some physical problems. and she's helping him preach. She couldn't sing a lick. I'm telling you, I wanted to stuff my ears up when that girl tried to sing. But you ought to hear her now. She didn't give up. And I'm telling you, she can sing as good as anybody. In fact, she does a lot of the leading and singing for him now. And like I said, she's helping me preach. Life began to change. Why? Because she stayed committed. She didn't give up. There it is. That's them getting married. Now you say, green? Yeah, because they got to go to the mayor's office and get married before you can get married in a church. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep moving on you. But anyway, they got married at the mayor's office, and they had these clothes here just for that. I don't know where that picture come from.
It's getting ready.
Oh, it's getting ready. This is another one. There it is. She went and got her own dress. We didn't have nothing to do with that. She said, I can handle it. I know what to do. She went to the Goose on a bus, and didn't even have to take her in there. She went herself. She knew what she wanted. She wasn't going to change, and there they are getting married. They did it all themselves. Down in our front yard, they had it decorated. You ought to see it. It was so beautiful. And there they are with their first baby. Little EJ, he's a year and a half. Well, he'll be 2 July. 3 in July. And he'll never know, what it's like not to be in the ministry. Because that's all they live and breathe for. Eric and Gladys, that's all they live and breathe for is ministry. Their job is 24/7. I mean, they go day and night. It's unreal. I can't do it no more. I shared this, maybe I shared it with you last time, but I had to go to a Jesus meeting with Everett. I said, son, Dad's getting old, and Dad can't go like he once did. I said, I can work, or I can go preach at night. But I said, I can't do both. Them days are over. I said, now, you just take your choice. He said, well, Dad, that's a no-brainer. He said, you do the work, and I'll go do the preaching. So, but that's good, because we put him in as pastor. Him and her does the pastor, and I just help him. They're over the International School Ministry. They just totally run everything. It never misses a lick. When we're here, it never misses a lick. Everything is being done just like we're there. In fact, God was so good. We built that. You seen the conference center. You have to forgive me. My back's hurting so bad. I'm not thinking clear. So we built a conference center, and we needed about 300 to 400 chairs. And of course, we didn't have no money. And Paul from our home church, he raised 2,000. We got 100 chairs. The fellows, 200 chairs. We ended up giving more money, got 200 chairs. And now, the fellowship helped us, and we're able to get the 400 chairs we was wanting. And we're getting ready to do our first conference. So that's what God's doing in Honduras. But I did that, told you about commitment, to show you what God did in that young lady's life. Because she committed to God. She didn't give up. She didn't waver, even though things was hard. She didn't quit. She held right in there. And I don't know how many more pictures is up there. Can you just flip them? That it? Okay, that's in there. But she never quit. And because she didn't quit, God has blessed it. And God will do the same thing right here in the United States that He done over there. Pastor Tony has probably preached many sermons. And somebody's life has been changed just like Gladys. You need to share it with him one day, because he'll be blessed. And I know that he's preached many good sermons, and he's touched a lot of lives, just like we have in Honduras. We're not giving up. We're not quitting. Someone said, "Wait, when are you going to quit?" We're not quitting. When I quit, they'll bury me in Honduras. I don't want to be buried in the States. I want to be there with my family. That's my family over there. That's home to me. That's just like home's to you is here, home's to me is over there. And like I said, I'm ready to go back right now. It's a lot warmer there. We spent 3 weeks in Ohio, and it snowed every day we was up there. It was terrible. So I got about 10 minutes, honey, that I want you to come. God's not only on the move. Come on. God's not only on the move in Honduras. God's in the move in the United States. And I want the wife to share just a little bit of what God has done for her.
Is it Good.
All the time.
I did want to tell you that we were, Daryl was on the phone to Everett yesterday, and we were telling him some things he needed to do and take care of before we get back. And so our daughter wanted to talk to him, and so she says, Everett, what does it feel like to be told what to do getting orders from another country? And he said, well, sometimes you just have to suck it up. So anyway, but I don't know if any of you have been aware of anything going on in my life on Facebook or not. Tony, do you know anything about my personal life? I don't know. You might
I see a lot of your...
Okay. Okay, well, God has just done something, just a miracle in my life. I grew up knowing that I was adopted by my stepdad. I knew what my real father's name was. I knew I had a sister about my age, and I knew I had an aunt that I was named after. And I grew up in an unchurched family. I don't ever remember my grandparents being in church, and my mom and dad was kind of in and out. But anyway, I always wondered about my real father and about a sister that I knew that I had as my age. And I always knew I didn't feel like I was different from the family I was raised in. And I grew up knowing I didn't want to be like that I wanted to be different. And when I was 12, I was saved and wanted to be a missionary nurse and wanted a Christian home and just wanted everything that I didn't have and didn't seem possible. So I'm looking for my real father, and I'm searching, and Daryl and I get married, and I'm writing letters to everybody that I can find his name, and there's about 50 of them, and the town I thought he was from. So I never heard nothing. And we moved to Kentucky in '78, and I'm still searching for my sister's name, my aunt's name, my father's name, and nothing. Finally, one day, my mother calls me, and she tells me where my father's living. And Daryl and I took a trip to Ohio to go see him. And he rejected me. Didn't want anything to do with me. And I had stayed in the area for a while and had written him a letter telling him my information, where he could find me, my phone numbers and stuff. I heard nothing from him. So then I decided, well, I'm going to have to get a grip on this, because my marriage ain't going to be able to handle it, and I can't handle it, and all this. So I began then to just kind of settle into life and forgot about trying to find him anymore, or trying to do anything or contacting him. It's just the end of the story. So I just put it back on mine like it didn't even exist and tried to live with it. So life went on, and last year a friend of mine called Lisa. She felt led to call her. There was no reason for her to call her because she's my friend, Lisa's acquaintance, but she felt led to call Lisa to tell her that she had found a cousin that she didn't know she had through a DNA. And Lisa had told me about it. So there was just a glimmer there, DNA. You know, and I've already been rejected, so there's no hope of anything, but I do have that sister and aunt that's always been in the back of my mind. So I went and ordered the kit to send my DNA in. I didn't say nothing to Daryl about it. He knew I was doing it, but I didn't want to hear his opinion. I didn't want to give him a chance to say no. So we didn't talk about it. I just did it. And I could tell. He didn't care much about that idea, but that's what it was. So right before we went back to Honduras it was either August or September, I got my results back. And when I went to look, the names weren't familiar with me. So I went and spent more money and looked at the family tree. Well, my father's obituary, it said that he had 7 children and a daughter of an unknown relationship. So I'm thinking, is that me? Or was that somebody else? And so then I looked, there was no name of any siblings on that. So I looked at his wife's obituary, and there was the list of my 6 sisters and a brother. And so I started looking on Facebook, and I finally come to the conclusion the guy that managed the DNA was my brother-in-law. So I emailed him and I said, I know you don't know who I am, and I know this is such a shock, and but here I am, and I'm gonna let you decide whether you tell my sisters about me. And if I don't hear from you, you won't hear from me again. And so we were in Honduras, and I waited for 6 days and checked in my email, no response. And so one morning, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and Lisa called, and she never calls us. So when I answered the phone, she's bawling. She's just crying. I can't understand what's going on, and she thought somebody died, or I thought somebody died. And she says, Mom, they have been searching for you. And I said, searching for me? And she said, yeah, searching for you. So what had happened on the flip side, after Daryl had the conversation with my father, which I wasn't part of that because I wasn't emotionally able to deal with that, but my father had went in the house, and they could tell that there was something wrong with him. And that my one sister said, I want to know what's going on with you. And for some reason, he said that there could be a me. And it was never discussed again among my father or my mother, or their mother, but the kids all talked about it. And the kids did not know my name. They didn't know my mother's name. They didn't know where I lived. So there was no way they could even find me. So when my sister met my brother-in-law, they decided to do a family tree and a DNA. And in case I ever tried to find them. And that's what happened. So the reason why it took so long for him to get back with me was that they were in a cabin in Canada. And he had just gotten home, and she had went to bed, and he was checking his emails. And he hollers, says, Faith, you need to come down here. She thought somebody died. And he says, I want you to meet your sister, Darlene. Now, this is a sister that she said she used to lay out and watch the stars at night. And there's a cluster of stars that are called the Seven Sisters, but one of them you can't see. And she said she would look at those stars and think that where's the other sister at? And anyway, then we made arrangements then to come to Ohio, and I spent a week with them. Some of them come, one sister came from Florida, spent 7 days. It was just like a pajama party for a week. And the thing of it is, we did not even, it was like we'd never been apart. And they're all in ministry. Now you got to think, I come from a family that's not in ministry. Now I'm in a family where they're preaching and talking and worshiping, and I mean, it's a whole new life. And I had always envied families that had sisters to go out shopping with and to go out to eat with. Well, we like the same things. And it's just amazing. I go in their house, and the books I read is on their tables. The things that I would buy if I was here, they have it in their house. Wow. And so anyway, then we spent last week, and then when we first come over, we just come back from a week of spending with them again. And my sisters, they just gather up in one house, and it's just a pajama party. And the first time, when Daryl and I are apart, we just talk back and forth all day long. Well, the first time we met, I didn't have time to talk to him. I'm talking to sisters. And my brother, I have not met him yet. I've talked to him on the phone, but he said that he was disappointed in me because I wasn't a girl.
Wasn't a boy.
Yeah, I wasn't a boy. That's right. And anyway, one sister's in Florida in ministry, so it's just been a whole complete life. But the miracle that they had searched for me. So when I had given up on God, and God here answering that prayer, and I quit praying as much, here they picked it all up, and they're looking for me. And so it's just been a blessing and just a miracle. So in July, I'm going to Texas to share my testimony, and one or two of my sisters is coming with me to share those. So, I mean, just don't give up. I mean, we're 60-some years of prayer. And also, I do want to say, after I knew all this, the Lord was protecting me. My father was a deliverance evangelist for 20 years with tent meetings and stuff. So I come from a heritage of Christian ministry, but he ended up not such a good person in the end. And so when I found out the end of the story, I could see why God did not answer that prayer. Because I was, oh God, why did you bring me this far? Why didn't I meet him or be there right there and could not meet him? Why? But God was protecting me the whole time and waiting for such a time as this. So anyway, it's just cool that don't give up on God, because He's got your back. And the right time, He'll come through for you, even when it doesn't seem like it's. Even when I quit praying, He remembered them prayers years and years ago. He remembered my heart's cry, and He was just waiting for the right time for it to happen. Anyway, we love you. It's been good being with you.
Almost 20 years ago, when they did the DNA, I'm trying to find her.
So it was long answered prayer on their part too.
Wow, what an awesome story.
Yeah.
Amen. Hallelujah. All right. Well, we would like to bless the Dakins with an offering this morning. So I would ask, Mike's got the pretty pink basket right there, and we'll make a check out. We'll make it out to Crosswalk Fellowship, and